Okay, we're ready to go when you are.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. Seeing that it's 6:05, we'll call the meeting to order. The first order of business will be roll call. Glynis,
Unmute here.
Ryan,
I'm here.
Donna,
Ah, unmuted.
Rachel. I know Rachel's traveling. She might be coming in and out. Jonathan
Right here.
and Tony's here. Okay. Number 3 on the list. Approval of the May 19th, 2022 Planning Commission meetings. Does any of the board members have any questions in regard to that they would like to put on the record?
No,
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to accept those minutes?
I move that we accept the Planning Commission regular meeting and public hearing minutes from May 19th, 2022.
Okay, great. Thank you, Glynis. Okay. Does anybody second that?
I'll second it.
Oh, thank you, Donna. All right, Glynis,
Yes,
Brian,
Yeah.
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Tony's yes. Okay, next on the agenda, the June 2nd, 2022 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Does anybody have any questions in regard to those?
Mm,
Okay, I'll take the silence as a no. Would somebody like to make a motion in regard to that?
sure. I move that we accept the June 2nd Planning Commission Town Council combined meeting. Was it, can you scroll down so I can see the title? Sorry.
So it's just
The
the
plan-
Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Yes, okay, the Planning Commission meeting minutes from June 2nd.
Okay, thank you. Would somebody like to second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, Glynis,
Yes,
Ryan,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Tony's yes. Okay, that being done. Okay, we're gonna go, next we'll be going a little out of order, just so we don't ruin somebody's birthday. We'll go to number 2 on the public hearings agenda. Discuss and possibly make a recommendation to the town council regarding the final plan for claim phase 4 subdivision. Thomas, do you have anything that, you want to go over the report?
Sure, I'll go over it pretty quickly. You guys may remember that we did phase 3 for claim subdivision back in January, and that was approved. So this is for the next and final phase. At the time, we were not sure how many phases the claim was going to actually take to build out in, but it looks like Chris is proposing to finish all of the 88 units in 4 phases. So this is for that phase 4, and it is for, sorry, I've got my wrong staff report up here. And it is for if you go down to the next section, actually, you can see there that this is for the final 14 lots that will be on the far north east section of the community, as well as the 8 lots that are kind of on the southwest side of the community. So this will finish out the 88 lots. Just as a reminder, the project area is about 59 acres. About 43 of those acres are basically preserved as open space, untouched land, with the exception of trails that will be cut in. So just as a reminder, that is the layout that you see in front of you for the total 88 units. So this approval was initially done by way of an MDA. It was approved in December of 2017. And the MDA does note that if the town's zoning changes, such as design changes, such as infrastructure requirements, i.e. roads, et cetera, that this proposal would then have to meet the new zoning code. So when this was approved, we had the old zoning code. Now it would fall under the new zoning code. So if you go to the next page down just a little bit, you will see, go to right about there. Yep. You'll see some of the code sections that have to be addressed. This would, it is mountain zoning with the plan performance development overlay right now. That is what gives the MDA its density. You will see below that is the 10806, the general standards monotony clause. This was one of the newly implemented sections of the new zoning code in 2021. And so this subdivision would be required to meet that. The reality is phases 1 and 2 and most of 3 are pretty much done and built. So as we have been working with Chris, he's been very supportive, and he is on the Zoom call. As we've been working with him, we have worked with the design review committee, and really what we're looking at are changes in terms of some colors for different units, different buildings. Not significant changes, because it would look a little bit strange to have half the project as one design, half as another. But we are trying to get differentiation in with color changes, some roof line changes, maybe some increased heights in some areas on the cantilevers, maybe reducing in some areas. And so we're starting to look into that. It is worth noting, though, that it doesn't necessarily meet the letter of the law for the ordinance. And so it might help if the Planning Commission could provide a little bit of input on that, because if it doesn't meet the exact intent, i.e. 6 lots, if it's got 6 lots or more, you can't have more than 20% of the structures with the same elevation. That's going to be impossible in this particular development, because so much of it is already done. So it might be something that, based on the Planning Commission's recommendation, we might have to get a variance from the actual code. Still get slight deviations, but it won't be as much deviation. And so I don't know if you guys want to give a little input on that or not, but the applicant has been working with us and is looking at some tweaks to the designs, as I said, mostly roof heights and colors, but it's impossible at this point for him to meet the exact letter of that ordinance. Are people generally comfortable with the direction we're going with, the more subtle deviations? Do people need to see more? Is there a concern about the monotony?
Could you perhaps describe what you see as the differences in the roof lines? Colors are obvious, but are we talking about a 1 foot different in roof line or something significant?
No, it's a good question. We're looking at some areas where we could maybe on, most of the buildings are 4plexes, some are 3plexes, but assume there are 4plex. All of the roof lines on each of the buildings are varied by unit. Okay, so each of the 4 have a slightly different elevation. What we're looking at is some of the units that wouldn't block views or anything like that, maybe increasing it 2, 3, 4 feet, something like that, or maybe a decrease of a couple of feet over here. It's not significant, but it might give it a little bit of relief combined with the color variation to just give it enough offset without it looking too manipulated, given how far they are along in the project. So we're trying to kind of balance these scales. It's quite tough, actually.
Because even if they can't meet the exact letter, it'd be nice if they could at least meet the spirit and make these look significantly different to at least comply with the spirit of the anti-monotony regulation, which is essentially to make sure that things aren't looking too the same. And so to what extent can they be varied to make them look differently?
I can certainly let Chris, the applicant, chime in what can be done. It is worth noting that, on I don't know if you've been up to claim, but on each of the fourplexes, each of the 4 units has a very different look from the one just adjacent, which is quite good. But I think what you're referring to is there may be a fourplex here that has the same facade as the fourplex here, and that maybe that differentiation. Chris, I can let you speak to that a little.
You bet.
Do we have a picture that Jonathan can see?
Yeah, why don't you scroll down to the page below, and I think I've got a couple of photos. There you go.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Is now good?
Yeah.
Should I chime in? Okay.
Yep.
First, great to be with you all tonight. Speaking to the monotony clause, I think it's a great clause to put in. Overall, I certainly understand what probably prompted the reason for it. I'm glad it's being instituted. We're happy to support it. I do want to say that I think that when from day one, from our inception of our conceptual approach, I think had a lot of that going on. If you look at all of our garage doors, some are twos, some are 2 singles, and some are double. Every porch has a different height. Every unit of our 4 has varying roof lines and varying heights. So I do really like what the spirit, as we're saying here, of this clause, and we're happy to continue to work towards more. But in fact, we've probably gotten most of our compliments on the design and how, not necessarily, wow, you're really, I don't think the normal everyday person can speak to fenestrations and everything, but I do think that's been an important part of what our design has encompassed from the beginning. So anyway, as we've talked about this and received feedback from the city and from Thomas, initially, keeping in mind that we have essentially 2 phases that were already started to one degree, approved, and then the monotony cause. So we're actually trying to go backwards, even beyond the point of the approval point, to say, okay, how can we start to get these colors and variations in as quickly as we can, just so kind of from a distance, you don't see a section the same and then a section different. So we're trying to implement as much as possible, as soon as possible. A little bit of a challenge has been, as you guys know, materials. So we ordered lumber last year in Q3 of last year. And so we're trying to make this work with kind of what's available and do that. So we'll continue to try and find ways to create differentiation and do this. So yeah, we're pretty open to feedback. If it becomes too, I wouldn't mind being on site to almost see how much is there now, and what they think would make the most impact. Like I said, we're pretty open, and want to make changes that will make the most impact without leaving a cohesive feel on the whole site. I was initially a little worried that we might push into too much space. Now maybe that was just me and whatever, but that's our only other side of that coin, is just making sure the project still stays cohesive.
What kinds of things do you think you could do?
I truly think the most impact is going to come from color on the building. I'm not addressing roof line. I just think so we have materials in different sections, and again, on a fourplex, each four units are completely different. So now we've created 3 new color palettes that we can apply to a building. So now you're going to see a variation in color, in material, in different locations, and you'll start to see movement. Keep in mind too, we're on a hill. So when you come up a hill, each garage sits at a different level, each porch sits. And so all those roof lines are adjusting as you move up and down that hill. But I think color of material is going to be the most visual impact that we can do.
What, if anything, can you do with the roof line or something other than color? Because I personally, I view the color as merely cosmetic. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't comport with the spirit of anti-monotony. What else could you do other than color?
I just worry at the scale perspective, moving a roof line 3 feet doesn't do a whole lot. We're happy to do it. I think color is the only thing that visually you guys will see from, is this more of a view from 248? Or is this a view from, because if you're on the, let's call Claim Drive, I think the variation that you're going to experience on our drives alone, without saying, I've noticed the monotony in other places when essentially you have one design may include more than one, and it's just repeated. We have nothing close to that experience up there right now. So I would say it would be challenging to identify current monotony up there from lines and from lines. That's probably our best strength, is how many lines we have up there. I worry too, if we push our roof lines up further, are we going to bump up against the height requirement? So I don't know on that. So I would be interested on more feedback on where, maybe a gauge of where we are on monotony. If we could rank our monotony level, how positive is it currently, and what then would make the most impact?
I'm certainly
Jonathan,
go ahead.
I was going to say, keep in mind that that the units in the fourth phase here are kind of up and in the back, and then just a few, to the left as you look at the hill. So they're not, they're not like in the middle of the mix. So already they're a little bit different just from being on the outside, if that makes any sense.
So as I read the anti-monotony provisions, they basically, they're not from any particular perspective. They're kind of from all angles. But I guess I'm certainly no architect. Thomas, do you have any thoughts on how this might be varied a little bit?
As I said, this is a hard one because, we're like 2 phases in. And so you don't want one chunk to be one thing and another chunk to be another thing, right? Completely different, because that starts to feel separated and disparate, right? And so I think color will help. I think maybe some roof line deviation. I think, if we were to go beyond that, if you're starting to think of maybe some horizontal articulation that would be different, that starts to get a little bit harder given that the way this was platted, right? There are some limitations there, right? And so we're so limited that I think that probably those subtle changes are probably the best. I mean, maybe we could look at the windows. The fenestration gets really hard just because of the room layout if you're not actually changing the actual floor plate, right? And so we thought about that early. And I guess I would just say, since we can't do, it'll be very challenging. I mean, it would require a significant change to the planning to do the horizontal, pushing the building in and out. I guess I would say the roof lines and the colors, and any thoughts all of you have would be very helpful to me.
This is Ryan. My feeling is that we've already have a couple phases up there. If we start changing it too much, it's going to look worse than what we're afraid of. And now it's kind of hard to give an opinion without looking at it, other than I did drive by it this week. I like the rock walls. I like the new sign they put up, and I look at it, I'm like, that looks like a sharp project. So I'm in the camp of, I'd lean towards not changing it too drastically where it looks like, oh man, whether they just scab on a piece of the development there. I think that's probably more detrimental. If we want to change that roofs and few things, a little up and down, that's, I'm not opposed to that, but I would be opposed to anything.
Yeah. And when we looked at the roofs, Chris and I were wanting to make sure that we intersperse them as much as we can throughout. Again, if we did all the roofs in just one area, the 2 red circles, that could potentially look a little bit out of place as well, out of character, I should say. And so we're looking at, kind of sprinkling it through as much of the project that's not built and that's not already built, of course, as we can, so that it looks as natural, as subtle as possible, but yet gives you slightly different shadow patterns. If you're looking at it from a distance, kind of on the horizon, it'll give you a little bit of differentiation. It won't be significant, but maybe a little.
Do any of the other commissioners have any other questions for either Chris or Thomas?
Well, I have one more question if no one else does.
Go ahead.
Thomas, I was reading through this and, I see that there's going to be some dirt trails and they're going to be turned over to the town to maintain. Are there any standards for dirt trails? In other words, is it just a pathway? Do they have to compact it? Do they have to edge it? And if so, has anybody looked at what it'll cost the town to maintain these trails?
I think, well, the answer to your question is no, we don't have specific standards, but Chris has agreed to work with the Parks, Open Space and Trail Committee, and we are starting to put together a set of standards for hard trails and soft trails. And Councilperson Chris Byers on that committee, and she is quite the avid trails person, and so she has an intimate connection to trails and surfaces, and so we're coordinating with the Parks, Open Space Trail Post Committee.
Do we have a feel of what it'll cost the town to maintain these trails over time?
Well, let me think about that. I think Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. I know the way it reads is that the town is responsible for the trails, but I think all of these are on common space property. So I think it probably ends up at the HOA actually at the end of the day. It reads like it comes back to the town, but all of these are on HOA common property. So it would actually be the responsibility of the HOA.
I think that's actually a better solution. And if we could correct the MDA to reflect that, I think that would be a really good idea.
Yeah, and I had put that in my report. And that clause in the MDA is a little bit misleading. It says trails are going to be maintained by the town, blah, 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 except for those that are part of the HOA and on common space, but all of these are part of the HOA and on common space. So Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the HOA was always planning on taking care of these, right? It doesn't read that way in the MDA very clearly though.
Yeah, I'm happy to work on any clarification there. It's hard for me to recall back, but I'm following the same logic you guys are saying. It seems like that's who would take care of them.
Okay. I think that would be an important update to avoid future disagreements, shall we say.
Yes.
And we could do, that's a relatively minor amendment to the MDA, and we can put that in the resolution.
I'd like to see that, certainly. And then one more question, does undisturbed mean undisturbed, or does undisturbed mean graded and then something else? We've had an issue with that, and I would just like to know that I understand exactly what we mean by undisturbed.
It means undisturbed. So if you're referencing the what is it, the 43, I think it is 43 acres, those are intended to be undisturbed. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, those are undisturbed, untouched, with the exception of cutting trails in.
Yeah, if we're referring to the open space, that's how I understand it too. At a point, I thought that we had discussed amenities up there, a pavilion, a sitting area, people, and this isn't necessarily me. It was just part of discussions that walking amenities, sitting benches. So I guess no physical structures. I don't know if a gazebo, we're not planning a gazebo. I don't know if that was buttoned up to the degree that certainly maybe we're discussing right now, but in my mind, there was never the mind or anyone saying that some kind of a structure was going to be built up there. But the idea that you could access it for amenity was included, mostly through hiking was the conversation always discussed. It's steep up there. As steep as our site is, it dramatically increases its slope as you go just beyond our, we're where we're at for a reason. I'll say that.
And then lastly, if I would suggest that we amend the MDA paragraph, the findings, paragraph 7E, to also not include not just fire, but EMS.
That makes sense. Yes, we can do that.
Is that in,
That's actually in the conditions of approval in the resolution.
okay,
Yes. It says a fire protection and emergency access plan shall be accompanied and approved by the Wasatch County Fire District prior to the issuance of any building permit. So we'll add also Wasatch EMS, I think is what you're asking for, correct, Jonathan? Yes. Okay, we can add that. That makes good sense. So based on what I'm hearing, it sounds like what we would do is we'll continue to coordinate with Chris and the design review committee. It sounds like look at the subtle changes, but I do think that, Chris, we will have to coordinate with you to get a variance because you're meeting portions of that code line, but not all of it. And so I think for clarification, we would want to get that variance. And I'll defer to Molly, certainly, but I think that it might be necessary.
And I'm great to work that direction, whatever is the proper procedure. I'm sure Polly will know exactly that process. My question would be, if that is the process, can we include that now in this conversation for the approval, or why I'm here can be included now? So we're just not repeating, coming back again to discuss the variance.
That would actually go. That goes to the Board of Adjustment, and the town doesn't use a Board of Adjustment. We're small enough where we have an administrative law judge. So that variance would go to the administrative law judge. And we would want
and it's a different process, unfortunately. So unfortunately, we can't do it in one go.
When you mean in one go, meaning
tonight.
Tonight.
So we would come back here again to discuss a variance. No, okay.
Nope. You have to go. You'll submit to the administrative law judge. We'll help you with that process.
Okay, fantastic.
Doesn't come back to a committee or a commission. It goes to the ALJ.
That sounds good.
Chris, do you have any updates with regard to the stockpiling? Are we good in terms of SWIP reviews, stormwater reviews, the drainage protections, et cetera? Is that looking good up there? I know those are conditions. I don't know if you may not have the information yet. There are conditions within the resolution. Are there any updates that you know of?
You know, just after last time, and then I mentioned it this time going in, what has been expressed to me is they're continuing to follow all the procedures that we started with in the beginning, that they're reaching a point to start incorporating more landscaping now. It was a function of fulfilling a certain portion of it and then beginning to plant the revegetation back. So I would just say all is continuing on everything we've discussed previously. We're continuing to operate within those parameters and ultimately understand the goal is revegetating that hillside.
Is there a timeline for getting rid of the big pile?
The timeline goes along with what the procedure is of just working through the site. So I know a phase of it gets revegetated this year, but not all of it for sure. I think it would be next year that would be. So we anticipate completing claim summer next year, and that would certainly be a part of that next year.
Alicia, could you go to the photo on page 63, just so everybody's aware, that stockpile basically gets smoothed out a bit and then revegetated. That's the extent. I don't think anything is proposed to be removed from that stockpile. Is that correct? Chris?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, correct. Yeah, there's no essentially we entered into an agreement with the city and the landowner that, you know, and just said as long as it was conducted on this manner, that's what they would do. So that's what they can. But yeah, after kind of our last, I guess that was plat 3, we kind of revisited it all and again met with the town engineers, TO, and you know, and just made sure everything was continuing. But just from the nature of the conversation, I know the intent is to revegetate that hill so that it is back to, you know, as best it can be, and we're still on the same page with you there.
And Chris, this is Tim. When we met with your guys, they gave us a time frame. Is that still on track? For the revegetation.
Yeah. So I don't know if I was there exactly. I know that my team has worked with them, but I do know that a phase of that revegetation is this summer, and the completion of it is next summer.
Okay, because they told us by July 15th. So.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah. So just want to throw that out there.
Fast approaching. So thank you. Yeah. Yes.
That they committed to that. So, and I apologize for coming in late, but if you have talked about it, if Polly and Thomas, if we've already talked about it, let me know. But everything will be done by July 15th is what I was told. Earthwork operations and then the reseeding will take place following that.
And Tim, maybe just to clarify, are you saying that the whole mound would be revegetated by this July 15th? Because I would be understanding it differently.
Yeah, and maybe we just need to just double check just to make sure. But at least the earthwork. I didn't understand that. I love Google. At least the earthwork portion of moving of the hill and then getting ready to get it seeded and graded out nice. I mean, that, you know, the fine grading and everything was going to be done by July 15th. Now, I thought they had also said that they could get it seeded by then, but maybe I just misunderstood. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
So let's just coordinate, Chris, if that's okay.
Okay, that would be great. I'm happy to. And I clearly need to get a better update too. So happy to do that.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
You bet.
Do any other commissioners have any other questions? Okay. That being said, this will now be open for public comment. Is there anybody who's online who would like to make a comment in regard to this? Okay, that will close. Seeing that there's no response to that, we'll close public comment on that. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, Thomas, but we're just going to put this over till he goes in front and does what he has to do to get the in regard to what we discussed, correct?
Well, I think what you guys will probably do is, if you're inclined to approve it based on the discussions tonight, it would be approved. He would have to meet the monotony clause unless he gets the variance from the ALJ. So I think there are some hardships associated with this, but that's a decision by the administrative law judge. So I think if you're inclined to approve it, you can approve it, conditioned that he'll work with us on the color variation, roof line variation, et cetera, subtle variations, but that will not meet the full requirements of the code. So he would have to get a variance from that.
From us or from?
It'll come from the administrative law judge. Only a board of adjustment or an administrative law judge can give a variance.
Well, do any of the commissioners have any issues in regard to voting on this now, or would they like to put it over to see if he gets the variance?
I think we can go ahead and vote on it.
Mhm. I think so too.
Agree.
Okay,
Yeah, and just so to be clear, you can vote on this, and of course, if he can't get the variance, then that just, I mean, then he still has the lots to build on, but he just would have to come up with a different design, which isn't specific exactly to what's being approved tonight. So I think from a legal standpoint, it makes sense to go ahead as well.
okay. Thank you, Polly.
And I know there were a couple of additions, adding EMS to condition of approval 7E. We discussed the administrative law judge, and then a change to the MDA, just clarifying that it's not town maintenance of trails, it's HOA maintenance, and clarifying land that is open space is undisturbed with the exception of trail or trail amenities, for example. And those would be approved by the POST, Parks Open Space Trail Committee. You guys noted those 4 conditions.
Okay, that being said, then, we will put this to a vote of the commissioners for either, for a positive recommendation to be forwarded to the town council. Glynis?
Are you asking me to make a motion or?
Yes.
Okay. I move that we vote positively on the resolution approving the claim phase 4 subdivision with 4 items. 1, that we make clear in the MDA that the trails are the responsibility of the HOA. 2, that the undisturbed means open space, nothing but the trails. And that in the resolution 7E, we add Wasatch Fire and EMS. And that 4, subject to the variance from the administrative law judge.
Does anybody want to second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, we'll put it to a vote. Glynis?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
And Tony's a yes. Therefore, we'll give a positive recommendation to the town council in regard to the claim subdivision phase 3, or 4, actually. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the time this evening.
Happy birthday to your wife.
Thanks,
Party,
guys.
Chris.
Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.
All right, now, agenda item number 1, presentation and discussion of the June 2022 Hideout Resident Survey results. Does anybody have any questions on that? Has everybody gotten a copy of it? I should ask first.
Yes.
Yes.
And now, does anybody have any questions in regard to it?
The only question I have is somebody kept saying to dissolve the town. Has that ever been discussed? I mean, sounds
And
kind of,
is that even possible to do that?
yeah, really.
I had a question about that also.
There's a legal way to dissolve a town. I haven't looked into it because no one has looked and wanted to disincorporate, but I think it involves a vote and there's a process for it to go from incorporated to unincorporated. If you want me to look at it, I know there's a state code provision regarding that process. I just don't know what it is off the top of my head.
So it sounds like is the first time we've come across that.
Yes, that's this is the first time anyone's asked for that.
Are there any points of interest that the commission would like to discuss in detail?
Is there, well, there wasn't, but I think we could probably come up with a conclusion from the survey.
For whatever it's worth, my take was that people want more commercial development. They want less residential development, but they don't want to pay for it. And that was my key takeaway. I don't know if other people saw it that way or not.
That's a very good summary, Jonathan. Thank you.
And also, I guess they're not really wild about nightly rentals either.
Just gonna say.
I think it's valuable input. I'm not surprised, but I think, the more the town residents participate, the better. I think that it'll help us make our decisions. And because there were subtle, people really hated some ideas less than others. And I think that was helpful for me.
Yeah.
And the message came through loud and clear that I think people want, some restaurants, a convenience store, that kind of thing. I don't know how in the world we can get a Target to come here, but I continue to believe that reserving adequate space for smaller businesses and my personal favorite 3 food groups, Italian, Asian, and barbecue, are really important.
Yeah, and just for us, it was also helpful to see that as well with regard to the strong desire for commercial. And so one of the takeaways that we had discussed internally was that we have some town-owned property up near the southern end of Deer Springs, kind of there on Ross Creek when you go into the park, and maybe we need to start proactively planning what could be there. I know that a couple of the private property owners up there would probably like to join that planning endeavor as well, just to see what collectively we can do. We don't have much in terms of acreage, right? Probably got between 10 and 15 acres in that area, and not terribly well laid out. But I do think it warrants us kind of putting together maybe a bit of a subcommittee and kind of working on a small area plan, bringing it to the planning commission and working it through with you guys, just to plan for what little we do have there. There's also an opportunity down on to do a little bit of planning up where Jason Gillenskog, your next application, where his property is. There's some property that's kind of surrounds him that may have some small opportunities. We had started those discussions about 1.5 years ago, and they kind of faded away. But I think it gives us the opportunity to start to proactively look at those two, before we make any other decisions or zoning decisions. And so this survey was definitely supportive, I think, of those endeavors indirectly in terms of commercial development.
What about that Nate Brockbank's property that we did a walk on?
Up above Jordanelle Expressway.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a little bit of opportunity up there as well, because right now he is, that's zoned for, I think, just generally townhouses, similar to what you see in Deer Springs. There was a discussion with regard to apartments there. There was subsequent discussions. We were maybe recommending something a little bit less dense, maybe some cottages, and get a little bit of commercial up there because it's close. And I think that Nate is also willing to coordinate and collaborate and work with us there. Yeah, that's the other location. You're right. And right on Jordanelle Parkway is a pretty good location.
Are there some things we can do to kind of publicize, for lack of a better word, the availability of space and the opportunities here? I really don't have an answer. I'm just wondering out loud, what can we do to try to stir up interest in commercial kind of endeavors coming to the town?
I think first of all, launching the planning efforts kind of puts it on the map, right? So if we kind of do these planning efforts, we proactively plan for it, we make sure that it's zoned correctly, and then we can start to market it, particularly the land that, the town owns. Certainly we can market that, right? And you guys can incentivize that in different ways that you see fit, right? Long-term land lease, contracts for certain kinds of commercial uses, that maybe land is disposed at under market value. For example, there's different ways to incentivize commercial development. Typically communities, when they're first engaging the commercial development world, it is a bit of a give and get trade. So I think do the planning, make sure we've got all of our ducks in order. We're all rowing in the same direction. We know where we want what, right? So, and then put it on the map, zone it, and then you can market it.
Could we perhaps contact if there's a Greater Park City Chamber of Commerce or the equivalent, something to kind of stir, the pot with local businesses and say, hey, here's an opportunity. You won't have any competition.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Come and talk to us because we're really interested. And I'm just kind of wondering if there's some kind of effort we could engage in, the we being the royal we, the town, to kind of let people know that there is opportunity here. There's a friendly place and it's a good opportunity without competition. I would think that I'm hoping that some businesses would jump at that.
Oh, I think absolutely we could. Yeah, that's a good idea. Coordinating with the Park City Chamber of Commerce and others, even reaching out to Rotary clubs, et cetera. A lot of people are in business are looking to expand businesses. And so that may be an opportunity. Yeah, definitely we can do that. Yeah, we've just not done it to date because we haven't had a plan. We haven't had, even formal delineation of exactly where our property is that we can share with people really, really easily. So that I think is the first step, and then get it out into the development marketing world.
Hi, this is Rachel. I'm here now. And I've had a concern about this for a while. One of the things it seems that I learned in the last year or two about planning through all the stuff that we've been doing is that in general, it seems like the developers think or tell us that they can't make a profit unless they build houses. And so I think that's been our biggest challenge as far as doing commercial. But my concern is really how do we attract someone to actually build the commercial if there's not enough of it that they would make a profit? That's, I think, going to be a critical thing that we need to figure out as a builder that we could work with.
Yeah, I think you're right. To be the first in this area, to Jonathan's point, you're right. There is no competition. Their concern might be critical mass. Their concern might be traffic patterns, other things like that, right? And so I think for town-owned land in particular, the first few go-rounds, you're probably looking at, if you want long-term land leases, you can go 30, 40, 50, 100 years. Maybe it's a $0 per year or a percent of revenue, right? That might incentivize somebody to come in. If you're looking to potentially sell it, you may be selling it well under appraised value just to get in the kind of use you want, right? Because you're right, a house is easy to locate on any of those properties. You can make a profit on a house without really thinking, right? But commercial, you actually have to incentivize it to get it in the door. But I think that other communities have had to do that. I think that might be where we end up landing as well.
I think to your point, what we might just do is reach out to the business community and ask them what would be attractive to them, rather than us trying to figure out what they want. Why don't we just flat out ask them what would it, what kinds of offers, what kinds of terms, what kinds of things would make you want to come here, and see what they say.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Is there a way to send this survey out to all the emails that responded or all the emails that this was sent to, instead of going on the website for people and looking for it on the agenda or the packet?
Oh, sending the results out to
Sending the results of this that you're going to, yes, they're sending the results from the survey out to the original emails.
I might leave that to Alicia to answer.
Yeah.
I don't know if
I don't know
Alicia,
if it's-
guys are thinking about doing that or putting maybe the results in the newsletter that also goes to those same emails. I don't know what your initial thoughts were.
We haven't discussed anything like that yet. I'm sure that we possibly could or potentially could. I know that the council also wanted to look at the results in the next council meeting as well. So maybe, in between now and then, I'll talk to the mayor and ask him if he wants us to put it up on the website as a standalone.
Do any of the commissioners have any other questions in regard to this presentation?
Well, so many of the comments I noticed, they wanted a happy medium. They wanted the commercial, maybe, the hotel and a restaurant or two, but not the density. And we already asked the Boulders, developers, and they were, absolutely not. They can't do just the hotel. But I just wanted to put that out there, make that comment, that I just remember McKay saying that they were unequivocally could not do that. It wasn't feasible financially for them. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's generally what they have conveyed today. Yeah.
Right.
For whatever it's worth, I spoke to a builder developer and I just kind of said, on the other end of that spectrum, 85 homes, what do you think the chances that someone's going to come in and do that? And this particular individual suggested to me that there isn't enough revenue in the 85 home plan to pay for the infrastructure. And this person believed that it just wasn't going to happen because there's just no way to make it work with 85 homes. So to the extent that the other option is 85, it may not really be 85. Any other option may be much higher for whatever that's worth. That's just one data point from one individual.
You do. That is an interesting point. You do have in your new ordinance a cluster provision so that if somebody did want to come in, they could cluster, thereby save some of the infrastructure and kind of cluster the houses. So rather than do them on the acre requirement, they could come in and request a cluster subdivision that would preserve the open space around it, tighten them up a little bit and save on some infrastructure cost. Other communities have done that as well. So it's an option, but you're probably right. It still may not make the numbers work. I'm not sure.
I don't pretend to understand the math, but that's for whatever that's worth. That's what a noted builder developer told me. So somewhere, if the Boulders for whatever reason doesn't make it, then the idea that it'll only be 85 may not be realistic. It may be much higher. I don't know.
So saying that the next person would also ask for a rezone or.
Yeah, that's what was communicated to me, that just nobody's going to want to go forward with a project 85 because it can't make it work. There has to be more residential units in order to pay for the necessary infrastructure. And where that line is, I don't know how to calculate that, but the message I got is it's significantly higher than 85.
Are there any other questions or comments in regard to this? That being, I'll take that as a no, so we'll close the discussion on that. We could always review this at the next meeting if, considering that the Boulders is going to be put over. Okay, item number 1 for public hearing. Discuss and possibly make a recommendation to the town council regarding an amendment of the official town of Hideout zoning map to rezone 1.1 acres of land within the town of Hideout boundary. This is piece of property, as the report says, it's basically 1.1 acres of land that's on Golden Eagle Road, about 750 feet south of Golden Eagle Circle. Thomas, do you want to go through the report?
Sure, I can go through it. And Jason Gillenskog is here, the applicant. So yeah, I'll walk through this real quickly for you all. So yeah, as Tony outlined, it's a proposal for a rezone of 1.81 acres that is currently zoned mountain. The request is to zone it to, then we don't have a tier between the mountain and the R3. And so the request would be to rezone it R3, which is 3 units per acre. But the intent by the applicant is to not build 3 units per acre. He could probably get, what is that, 5-ish units with an R3 zone, but to put 3 units on the 1.81 acres rather than 1 or 2 units. This is not yet a legal lot of record. It has not been platted or designated a legal lot of record. That would have to take place first. Before anything would happen, we would have to have a title report to make sure it is indeed a buildable lot, et cetera. Right now, we don't know that, but before he can do that, before he would plat it, he would need to know what his zoning is. And so he is just requesting the upzone from 1 unit to the 3. If you go to the next page, you'll see that little map, just in case you had some questions with regard to where it is. It's kind of hard to see, but you'll see there. It's right on the Golden Eagle Road, the entrance to the Golden Eagle subdivision, a little bit, about 750 feet south of really where the lots start up there.
Can you make that larger, that map, please? There you go, perfect. Ah, okay.
And so the Boulder's proposal is of course most of the land just to the west of here, right? But there's a separation, kind of where that lot line is. There is a little bit of a separation between the proposed Boulder site and this site. They don't connect.
Is the proposed Boulder site the square, the rectangle?
Roughly that box and everything to the left, yeah. Roughly, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So is it on the upslope or the downslope?
I will let Jason answer that. I think it's on the downslope on the right side when you go up Golden Eagle, but I will let Jason answer that because I don't know exactly where this property is.
Yeah, no, Thomas, it's on the upslope.
Oh, it is an up, okay.
Yeah, and there, in that proposal, there was topography on it. It's relatively flat. And what I would like to do is get 3 single-family lots out of it. That's what I'm proposing. I do have to change the zoning. To give you a little history on this whole area, had the original Area B North Master Plan zoning and Wasatch County zoning been adopted into the township, you wouldn't be having as many problems with commercial because there was some commercial zoned and there was some higher density. And it happened to be this little area that is this square, east of Boulders. And so this land in Wasatch County before the township incorporated it was residential medium density by county standards, as well as the stuff. And then there was some commercial that was closer to the road and some civic. But when the township was created, the powers that be disregarded that whole master plan that we had all participated in, that had wildlife, it had topography, it had vegetation. It was a pretty comprehensive master plan, and rezoned all this mountain. So we ended up losing the density that was allocated, in the county. And so anyhow, I think it makes sense from multiple perspectives. If I read through your general plan, people don't want more townhouses, and I don't want to build any townhouses. I'm a small potatoes builder. I build single family homes, and actually this would, if I was successful at getting this rezoned and replatted, I'll probably be building my own home there. I do care about the community, and I care about the development. I've worked for the past year to try to get the parties that have the larger parcels that are contiguous to me to sit down with me or get together, via Zoom. It's been challenging with the COVID situation, but there's a little animosity there, and they're not even willing to talk to each other. And one of the partners won't even talk to me. One of the landowners won't even communicate with me. So it would be wonderful if we had a cohesive plan that could incorporate all this and look at the possibility of having some commercial and what have you. But unfortunately, all I control is this little, close to 2 acre parcel. And it makes sense to me, looking at what everybody wanted, to not have increased density to the point that, I'd make a lot more money doing townhouses, I'm sure. But that's not my intent. So I'd like to, get it rezoned, and I've shown everybody what I want to do. I've got it laid out with 3 total lots, roughly half-acre lots. They have plenty of road frontage. I have secured some water that I can put into the town. Slight access, not much, but 3 acre feet. So there'd be some benefit for the town to have some small amount of extra water that is needed for other things. And that's kind of basically the proposal.
And so to do a rezone requires compliance with the general plan. And part of the challenge, I think, with this particular property is it's so small. It would, based on the current general plan, there's not support for additional density in that area. The current general plan really supports that area as mountain zoning. This small piece would almost appear as a kind of a spot rezone, which is not a legal recommendation for a planning commission to make. So our recommendation is that we should really start to look at this area in light of everything that's happening, whether it's with the boulders, some opportunities potentially with the property owners surrounding Jason, and then of course Jason, to maybe try to get a group together, work with the planning commission, town council, and do a bit of a plan for this area so that we can start to look at it proactively. You've got the 112 acres over at the boulders. You've got probably 40-ish between them and Jason, and then Jason's piece. So there's some opportunities to maybe start to look at this through a planning lens a little bit more holistically. But right now, the way the general plan is written is it wouldn't support a rezone. We would have to go through some additional planning efforts and or amend the general plan.
I have a question.
Are you saying that they can't change zoning in any mountain region?
It's not that we can't change zoning. We have to adhere to the principles of the general plan. We have to look at the area. We have to look at the goals and the strategies recommended in the general plan. This would be carving out a very small piece of a large area that is currently zoned mountain. And right now, that the justification is hard to find in the general plan. In fact, it's not there right now. So I think that you would have to look at this kind of holistically through kind of a small area plan that addresses this area.
Well, as I look at the general plan, it says, preserve outstanding view corridors. Obviously, this is in line with it. Neighborhood atmosphere connected.
Well, that depends on your viewpoint, though. Is more density in line with preserving open space and view sheds? It depends how you look at that, but I don't know that the general plan would say additional density helps view sheds and preservation of open space. It would actually do the opposite.
Well, one of the first things is single family homes. And so if you're going to look at it holistically and you're looking at moving it into some commercial zoning, that's going to create significantly more density than single family homes. So, I guess it depends how you look at it, because
Well, I don't disagree with you, Jason. I'm not arguing with you. All I'm saying is that I don't think that the current general plan supports an upzone in this spot in this mountain zoning designation district. I think that's why I'm suggesting we go back to the drawing board. We look at this and we start to plan for it. Maybe mountain zoning is right, but I don't know. I think that we would have to go back and start to take a look at that. I think that this area, and there's an area on the north end of town that I was talking about earlier, where we're looking at some planning for small area planning to look at the commercial development up there. That's also zoned mountain for the most part, right? So we need to look at really these two areas and understand, what do we want them to be? How do we want them to fit into this community as it moves forward? But I think that we have to look at that proactively.
so let me ask you this as a group. If I came in with the contiguous property owner to the east, it has, well, unfortunately, probably has about 14 acres that surrounded me on the east side of the street there, and ask for rezone, then that goes up and meets in with what's above. At what point is it a significant enough parcel that it can be done?
Well, it still has to meet the intent of the general plan. And that's why I think we really have to kind of go back and look at this, because right now the intent of the general plan really focuses on preservation of view sheds, open space, protecting the recreation tourist economy, et cetera. And so I think that it would warrant a relook.
Excuse me, who owns the property? It's all green there, but the property along that road, is it the same owner as Golden Eagle?
No. So well, actually, on the west side of the street, it may be controlled by the same owner. On the east side of the street, it's controlled by a different owner, and those are the two that I have not been successful at getting together. So a little history on the area myself. I was involved in the parcel at one point that's on the east side that's contiguous to this, and that thing's a little bit of a mess. They created the township, they didn't go to the county line. So if you look at the town line, the landowner that's east, on the right hand side as you look at it, has a property that's split between the Wasatch County and the Hideout Township, and so his part that's in Wasatch County is zoned residential medium density, and then the part that they brought into the township is zoned mountain. Like I said, a big part of this was not honoring what the old zoning was, and I don't know how it happened. We weren't notified when the township. If we were notified, we didn't know that it was happening. It didn't know that the entitlements that we had got from the county would be overlaid, and we'd lose that density that had been appropriated. And so that landowner isn't overly anxious to move forward because he doesn't know if he wants to be in the township. If the township's going to be hostile, he'll try to annex what he has out in the county, or he'll just build the stuff that he has in the county because it's got a much higher density. We had 35.5 ERUs on the total of 23 acres there, and that's history. But it was when it first happened, I had a planning commission meeting, called. Back then, you used to have to call it with the township, and we had support for a rezone then. I didn't realize that, not that I probably should have pushed it at the time, and we probably should have got it rezoned at the time, but we didn't. It didn't make sense. We were in still the depths of a big recession, and we didn't want to move forward with something that we couldn't afford to do. And it's such a small piece, to be honest, that the cost of infrastructure wouldn't have warranted trying to move forward with that, even if we had the full 35 ERUs on that parcel, and then another, whatever we would have got on this other 2 acres, which at the time I didn't control. So that's kind of the history of it. And anyhow, I wish I did. I wish I could have the ability to get 2 people together, and I'm all for good planning. I mean, and then to be honest, my little piece, I don't think it warrants commercial, but if I got the density allocated by some, commercial zoning, it would be much more profitable. But again, I think that goes against the general plan. Wants less density and wants single family houses, wants more single family houses. And if it worked for commercial, I would be somebody willing to try some commercial, because I know that the roofs aren't out there yet, and that's normally done on a demographic decision there. But the bottom line is you can make a lot of money on commercial.
Okay.
It may be to our benefit to actually meet with him, though, in terms of what he's thinking in that area. I think the property just to the east, to the right of the town property line, is actually zoned mountain JBOZ open space.
I'll show you, Thomas. I have it. I did it, and it's zoned residential. Well, it's a combination of residential medium and residential low, because it's all based on topography. But they allocated 35.5 ERUs on that piece, and that zoning has never changed.
That's interesting. On the zoning map, it's actually zoned mountain JBOZ open space. We'll have to look at that.
Yeah, I could show you. I mean, that went through the whole city council and everything.
I have a question. To take you back to something I think you said, and that is you're prepared to bring to the town 3 acre-feet of water. Did I hear that?
Well, yeah, I've secured the water, because I've been told that I have to come in with water now. The town doesn't have it, and so that only gives you a small residual overrun. Now these bigger guys, if they all brought in a small residual, it would start adding up. Again, this piece is just. This is something that I've kind of done my whole career. Is I call it, I'm a builder, but I do small infill development work on little pieces that the big guys don't want to, monkey around with. And it allows me to build a couple of houses and hopefully get into the land at a little bit of a discount. And so, I've done 7 subdivisions in Park City proper over the years, and, most of the time it works. But it's always a challenge, because we don't have the money, we don't have the clout, we can't, there's just not much you can do with 2 acres.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the difference? My gut estimate is, a house, single family, is going to look around 50,000 gallons a year. 3 houses, about 150, give or take. What is the excess that you would propose bringing to the table?
Okay, well, the excess is only, I have to buy the water in acre feet, and what we need is, and Thomas can probably speak to it, it's 0.9, or actually depending on what it is. So there's only, 1/10 of that acre foot would go into the town's, the town's kitty, so to speak. And again, on this small parcel, we're only going to get 3 lots. That doesn't add up. Now, had Martino done that, on Golden Eagle, it's 280 lots or whatever he's going to have. That starts adding up, and the town would have some excess water, not a lot, but it all adds up. And I know that everybody's trying to secure water in this region, because that's going to be, limiting factor on development coming up shortly.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions in regard to this issue? So Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, but we can't actually vote on this because it doesn't pertain to the overall town plan as it stands right now.
Well, our recommendation would be that we continue it to a date uncertain, and a couple of things need to happen. And that is, I think, a title report to make sure that it's a legitimate and buildable piece of property, number one, because it's not yet a legal lot of record that can be zoned. And so that has to happen first from a logistical standpoint anyway. But then number two, I think that it would benefit us as a town to kind of look at this a little bit more proactively. We've had so much interest in this mountain zoning area, and none of it has been for anything remotely mountain zoning in terms of density. And so I think it might help, it might give us an opportunity as a town to start to look at this and plan for it proactively. Maybe it's the right zoning, and maybe there's opportunities for some different land uses or different zoning recommendations up there, but without actually looking at it and digging into it. Right now it's zoned mountain, and your general plan would not support a spot rezoning to anything different. So I guess I would recommend maybe tabling it, allowing us to do some small area planning in that area. It would also give Jason some time to get his title report work together and confirm that it's a legal lot of record, buildable, etc. So that's our recommendation. It is also a public hearing. You may want to open it up to the public.
Yeah. Okay, at this time, if anybody who's listening in has a public comment in regard to this matter, now is the time to be heard. Please raise your hand. Okay, I don't see anybody, so at this time, we'll close the public hearing on this matter, and then we will put this over. Do you want to leave it open-ended, or do you want to put it over for next month? Will that be enough time for him to do?
I would continue it to a date uncertain to protect Jason and the planning commission, because we may not, I don't think we'll be able to get through a small area planning process within the 1 month.
Okay, so we'll leave this open till a date uncertain. And then petitioner can ask to have it be put back on the calendar when he's fulfilled everything that he needs to do. Going on to number 3, the continued discussion in regard to the Boulders project. They have asked that this be put over.
Tony, could I make a recommendation? I think we have to have a vote to actually continue to a date uncertain. So we need a motion and a second and a vote.
Thanks,
Okay.
Thomas. That's right.
Would anybody like to make a motion to put this over
I
to
will.
a date on?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Jonathan. Anybody second it?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Donna. Glennis,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes,
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Tony's a yes. Therefore, this will go, be put over to a date uncertain until the petitioner meets whatever requirements he needs to meet. Number 3 on the calendar, continued discussion in regard to the Boulders project. They have asked that this be put over. They, I believe, are supplying some information in regard to some of the requests we made 10 days ago. But this is open for public discussion. Is there anybody on the commission who has anything that they want to discuss in regard to this matter? Okay. everybody being quiet, I'll take that as a no. So therefore, we'll open this up to public hearing. Anybody who is on, who would like to make a comment in regard to the Bolton's project. Now is your time to be heard. I don't see anybody having a hand up or anything. Do you, Thomas?
No, I do not.
Okay. Therefore, we'll close public comment on this, as there is none. And the last thing on the agenda is the adjournment of the meeting. If somebody would like to make a motion.
Tony,
to
I think
adjourn.
you have to continue that. I think we have to have a
Yeah.
motion and a second to continue that to the next month's meeting.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt really quick, Tony? I guess you didn't see my email. The applicants are asking for a continued discussion on the 30th and possibly hold a special planning commission on the 30th. I told them that I would ask the planning commission and Polly and Thomas and everybody if you guys were available for a meeting that day. Otherwise, we're going to have to renotice it or continue it to the next one, but I don't think they wanted to wait that long. And that would put us at least 10 days out. And so,
Well, I don't know if, I would think in the interest of the council members, they would have to get back to you within a day or two to look at their calendars and see what they have. I'm not going to make that decision on the spot like this.
okay, so at that point, then I think we would want to continue it to a date uncertain, which means that we would have to renotice it for when everybody's available.
Okay. Especially considering the 30th is just before the holiday weekend.
Agreed.
People might be going out of town.
Yeah, agreed. They wanted to get it in prior to that week, and I told them that I would try to see what I could do, but I couldn't promise anything, on such short
Yep.
notice. So,
And I take it we can't do a vote because they're not here. And they asked us to move it.
Well, the only issue with that, I believe, Glynis, is they are supplying us with some of the materials that we did ask for.
Oh, okay.
I believe in discussions I've had with them that's what they've led me to believe. That being said, would anybody like to make a motion to put this over? Unless, Alicia, if we can get back to you within 24 hours, or do you need an answer now in regard to this?
yeah, I think we would need to choose a date now so that we could continue it to that certain date. Otherwise, it'll have to be. The earliest we could have it would be the 27th if, anyway, we can. I was just kind of guiding you on how to make the motion. If we have a date, then we can do a date certain motion. If we don't, then we need to do a date uncertain motion. Does that make sense?
Well, if we do a date uncertain motion, you still have to notice it again publicly, correct?
That's correct, yes. So sooner rather than later, just because if we wait until next week, then I definitely couldn't notice it prior to the 30th. You know what I mean? If we decided on the 30th or something like that, I'm just throwing a date out there, but it would have to be at least 10 days so that we could get a proper notice done.
Well, we can make it, can we make it for a motion to a date uncertain, and then it could always be before the 30th then, if everybody's available.
I think though that if you all want to and can meet on the 30th, then you can continue it to the 30th without any renoticing requirements on the part of the town. If it's any other date or just to a date uncertain, then the town would have to renotice it. So if you guys know that you can make the 30th, you could continue it to that date. Otherwise, it's to a date uncertain.
Yes. Thanks, Thomas.
And then if we look at our calendars and not all of us can make it on the 30th, then we can just adjourn it to another date. Am I correct in that assumption?
Well, if you guys are going to continue it to the 30th and then you're not sure if you can make it, I would continue it to a date uncertain. But if folks know right now if they can make the 30th, that would be the easiest thing for Alicia and the town to not have to go out and renotice. But if we can't, if you guys aren't available that date, I would just do a date uncertain.
Well, how do the commission members feel about June 30th?
I am right now available, but I have possible plans to leave town that evening. So I can't make that decision right now, but I just quickly looked at my calendar and I'm available Monday through Wednesday. That, I know I'm available Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, 27th, 28th, or 29th. 30th, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I have people coming into town on the 30th, so I'd rather not do it on the 30th, but I can do it on the 30th.
And
I'd rather.
Would any of those other days, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday work for you, Glennis?
Yep.
I can't make Monday, Tuesday. Hold on. I'm out of town. Oh no, I could make Monday work.
And I can't make Tuesday, the 28th work. I have another meeting.
Tuesday or Wednesday.
I could do the 30th.
Ryan, how about Monday?
I can't make the 30th. I'll be coming back from Australia, so I'm gone the 20th through the 30th.
You should say hi to Chris Byer.
Yeah.
She's in Australia too right now.
Cool.
What about the 27th? You wouldn't be able to.
Correct. I'll be gone.
Okay.
How about you, Tony?
If we do it at 5 o'clock, I can make it on the 30th.
What about the
can do that.
27th, Tony?
Excuse me?
What about the 27th?
That's Monday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that.
What about you, Donna?
I work actually till 5, but usually I'm able to get off early. Gosh, I wonder if we should just play. I mean, can you do 5:30, Tony?
Yeah.
Can we just do 5:30, make it a little bit earlier? That would be great. I could play,
Oh,
be
you guys,
safe.
I apologize. I can't make the 27th. I apologize. That's my flight time. I apologize.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So Thomas, you're out that whole week then.
Yeah, ironically, I'm flying.
You're flying?
Three of those 4 evenings, I'll be flying, sadly. Yes.
I can make a lot of dad jokes right now.
At my expense? Come on.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it sounds like the 30th.
Well, I don't think Thomas is available on the 30th either.
I'll be back at 4 o'clock on the 30th, so I could make that.
Do it earlier on the 30th? 5?
I could do that.
Yep. We don't know about Rachel though.
Oh, so Rachel, I'm sorry, she texted me to tell you that she had to leave. I could quickly text her and see if she can.
Because we'll need to have a quorum.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, who cannot make the 30th?
This is Ryan. I can't make it.
Okay, so one person. Okay.
And Polly, you're okay on the 30th?
Yeah. I'm okay on the 30th.
Jonathan, you were okay on the 30th?
Can do the 30th, yeah. I could also do the 31st, or excuse me, the next day.
I can do the 31st too.
Is that a way of getting out of it? Hang on.
Somebody's on to me.
I can do the
Maybe I'll-
1st,
I'm gonna try calling her.
because without a quorum, we're not going anywhere.
I think we'd have a quorum if we had Jonathan, Glynis, Donna, and Paul and Tony. I think we would have a quorum.
You may want to consider, though, that this is, you know, one of the biggest projects that you guys have considered. And you don't just want the bare bones quorum to move forward on this.
That is true.
But legally,
Could-
that's all you
I-
need. But I'm just saying that where you're just,
What about the 1st, July 1st?
Scope of this project, I don't think we should rush to make a decision just because
Right.
certain people had done in a time frame.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are welcome to continue it to a date uncertain if you're uncomfortable with 14-day turnaround for that meeting. It just means we renotice, but I mean, from a town
Yeah.
perspective, we can do that.
Yeah, and that's fine too.
I mean, my feeling is, rather than rushing it, I'd just rather continue it to a date uncertain. Not only that, this way everybody whatever they do submit, everybody will have enough time to review it rather than trying to look at it while the meeting is going on.
And Ryan, what do you think? Do you want to be there for that meeting?
Yes, I would like to be there. Yeah, I mean, I might. What did Rachel say about the 30th? I'm
So-
landing that day. I mean, I've never flown halfway across the world and have no idea what it's going to be like when I get back.
You'll be useless.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much what I'm afraid of.
And why don't we go a date uncertain?
Rachel did not get back to me. I texted her and I called her and there was no answer. I left her a message.
Why don't we go a date uncertain, and then we can figure out scheduling as things go. And I personally would like to receive the documents a couple of days in advance before we have a meeting.
Mhm.
I really don't want to
least.
try to cram, this stuff. It's too big, it's too important. And so, if we could find out when they're going to submit and then find a date, a reasonable period thereafter, that would be my preference.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, I move that we that move this item number 3. Is it 3?
Great.
Discussion of the boulders project to a date uncertain to be determined.
You're making a motion to do that, correct?
Yep.
I'll second it.
Okay. So then we'll put that to a vote. Glynis,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Tony's a yes. So therefore, this will be put over to a date uncertain, till we can figure out when everybody's going to be back in town and see when the documents will be submitted, so we have enough time to review them properly. That being said, that's all on the calendar. If somebody would like to make a motion to adjourn to our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is July 21st, and depending on what happens with the boulders. Anybody?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Donna. Glynis,
Yes,
Ryan,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Tony's a yes. Thank you all for your time tonight. Ryan, enjoy your trip.
Oh my
Safe
Yeah.
God.
travels.
time.
Ryan, that's great. Have a great trip.
We'll see you all. Talk to you all in the month. If anybody has any questions in regard to anything, we could always talk to each other 2 at a time so we don't violate any ordinances. But everybody have a safe weekend. Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Take care.
Enjoy.